The letter that changed everything, the silence before the revelation. Imagine you are in a very, very old world.
A world without cell phones, computers, cars, or television.
Everything you knew came from the people around you, or of messages written by hand, on parchment, with quill tips in ink. And now,
imagine you are a messenger. He is riding fast along a narrow road because he needs to deliver a letter that is more important than any treasure.
A letter that everyone in the castle is waiting for. The soldiers stop talking, the servants stop carrying water, even the nobles stop discussing their tasks. Because everyone wants to know one thing: is the letter from him, from
Saint Bernard.
If it's his, everything can change. Kings, queens, and princes lived with a host of problems, wars to resolve, difficult decisions to make, families fighting, rebel soldiers, and often nobody knew what to do. But when it revealed a letter from Saint Bernard, everything was changing.
Everyone feels silent. Everyone was waiting, because they knew that there, on that piece of paper, was something precious, wisdom. But the most incredible thing is that Saint Bernard was not a king. He was not a warrior. He was not a nobleman. He didn't live in castles. He didn't have gold. He didn't command armies.
He was a monk, a simple man,
who lived in a quiet place, but who spoke with kings without raising his voice. They say his words were so powerful
that could prevent wars before they started. They say he could calm down an angry king, and the sad queen finds hope again. They even say that his letters were kept like treasures, copied, shared, read by entire generations. And there is a letter
that almost nobody knows about,
written by him for anyone with a heart willing to listen. But wait, I'll only show you this special letter at the end.
Now, you will journey with me through the life of this extraordinary man, a man who proved something very
important, that you don't need a sword, a crown, or an army to change the world. It's enough to know what to say, and knowing how to say it. Get ready to find out. Who was Saint Bernard?
Because kings listened to his every word, how his letters changed entire countries.
And what was the secret message that traveled across centuries until it reached you?
Shall we begin? When his letters changed the destiny of entire countries. If these stories touched you, leave your comment, like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Is the world of ancient Europe. To understand the power of the letters of Saint Bernard, we need to remember one thing. Back then, Europe was like a giant chessboard. Kings moved their armies this way, queens shifted alliances that way, and one wrong decision could put thousands of people in danger. And in the midst of this enormous game,
a simple monk became a kind of voice of conscience of the
continent. King Conrad III, one of the most important kings of his time, was living through a critical moment. Wars threatened his people. The borders were weakened. The council members argued non-stop.
And nobody knew which way to go. That's when he did something surprising. He wrote to Saint Bernard asking for help. Think about it for a second.
A powerful king, with an army and riches, asking for advice from a monk who lived in a simple monastery. When Bernardo received the request, he understood the weight of that message. The fate of thousands of people could depend on his words. He dipped the pen in the ink,
and so began one of the most influential letters of the entire Middle Ages. Your Majesty, a true leader is not measured by the fear he inspires, but for the hope it awakens.
His men follow in his footsteps. Therefore, give them a safe path to follow. They say that, after that letter, the king made fairer decisions, avoiding battles that seemed inevitable, and strengthened his kingdom without unnecessary bloodshed. If you've seen movies with Knights Templar, get ready for something even more incredible. They were not just warriors, they were a special order with strict rules, unwavering courage, and a sacred mission. And do you know who helped shape their identity? Bernardo handing scrolls to the Templars. Yes, Saint Bernard. He wrote a text called In Praise of the New Cavalry, which explained what a knight should be like. Brave, but not
violent without reason,
strong, yet humble, obedient, but with a free heart.
A warrior, but a protector of the weak. The Templars treated their words as rules for life. They guarded their writings as if they were treasures, and many said that, without Bernardo, they would never have been so admired and respected. But it wasn't just kings and knights who received letters from Saint Bernard. They travelled everywhere, from castle to castle, from village to village, from monastery to monastery.
His words were copied and shared as if they were gifts, and each person who read it seemed to find something different. Consolation,
Courage, direction, hope. It was as if his letters had a life of their own. An old story tells that Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of the most powerful women in all of Europe, was in deep distress, problems at home,
political discussions,
injustices all around you, when sadness reached the point where you almost gave up on everything. A letter from Saint
Bernard reached her. Your Majesty, remember, the light that guides a kingdom begins in the heart of those who govern. They say that letter helped the Queen regain her strength and continue her mission. And ever since then, Leonor has treasured his words as a personal treasure. And now, we come to the most mysterious letter of all. A letter that was not written to a king, for a queen,
not even for Templars. It was written for a knight from any era. The human heart is stronger than any
crown. It is within him that courage is born,
compassion and true greatness. This letter has spanned centuries, and today it reaches you. Thus, with simple words full of truth, Saint Bernard touched kings, queens, knights, and ordinary families.
And his letters didn't just change decisions,
they changed destinies.
Stories have changed,
and they changed hearts. A legacy that echoes to this day, how the letters of a saint continue to change the world even after he was gone. Imagine you find an old trunk full of very old papers, and when you open it, you realize that each of those letters has already changed the course of history.
Now imagine that these letters were written by someone who was neither a king, nor a soldier, nor rich, but by a holy, who believed that words could be mightier than swords. That was Saint Anselm, the saint who wrote letters to kings and queens. And the most incredible thing is that his letters continue to resonate for centuries. As if her voice were still traveling through time.
Shall we dive into this? The letters that became bridges between peoples and governments. After Saint Anselm died, many people began to keep copies of his letters.
Monasteries, libraries, scholars. It was as if everyone knew that those texts were more valuable than gold.
And guess what? Several leaders began using the letters as an example to resolve disputes and avoid wars.
Some kingdoms used them to learn how to communicate without attacking. Others copied entire excerpts to send messages of peace.
Monks studied them to teach new rulers how to lead wisely.
It's as if the letters were a secret manual on how to be a good leader. Anselm taught the world to think for real.
Saint Anselm was not just a saint, he was a giant of a thinker.
He taught something that we still use today. Understanding is the way to believe. And not just believing without understanding. This had an influence. Schools, universities, teachers, and even philosophers who came
centuries later. In other words, Anselmo's brilliant mind helped shape the way we study, learn, and debate today.
It was as if he had lit a lantern in the past, and that light still illuminates the present.
The letters that saved lives, even without him knowing.
It sounds like something out of a movie, but it's real. Many kings and queens used Anselm's advice to avoid unjust punishments, wars that could destroy entire peoples, and even to protect children and families during conflicts. Not because they were forced to, but because Anselm's words made even the most powerful stop and think. Am I being fair?
Is this the best decision for my people? Some decisions were inspired by his letters. Reducing excessive taxes, second chance for enemy peoples, peace treaties, protection for persecuted groups of that time.
It's as if Anselmo's hand continues to guide the world, word by word.
The saint who became a magnet of wisdom for future leaders over time.
Anselm's letters became so famous that many leaders thought out his texts before even making a major decision.
It was almost like consulting a secret advisor. except that this advisor had lived a long time ago. Kings, popes, monks, scholars,
Everyone wanted to read what Anselm had left behind.
and every time someone read his words, it seemed as if he was speaking directly to that person, showing them another path, another way of thinking, another possible choice. Why were his words so powerful?
Because Anselm did not write
To command, nor to humiliate, nor to impose his power. He wrote with patience, with intelligence, with kindness, with empathy.
He knew thought a good conversation could change the fate of an entire kingdom.
Therefore, each letter was written as if it were a gift, a precious piece of advice,
A legacy that reaches us today. You may not realize it, but many things we experience today have been influenced by ideas that began long ago in Anselm's letters. Peace talks, education that values reason, philosophical debates, ways of teaching, peaceful resolution of conflicts, even the idea that leaders need to listen before acting. Anselm never ruled any country, but it influenced rulers because of more than 900 years. The truth is that Saint Anselm proved something simple and powerful. When someone writes with the truth of the heart and the strength of wisdom, their words can transcend centuries. His letters were not just paper and ink. These were seeds planted in powerful minds that, upon
germinating, changed history. That is why he is remembered to this day as the saint who spoke with kings and queens. But it also speaks to us in some way through time. The final message from the saint who spoke with kings.
when a simple letter is capable of changing destinies.
What can we do with our words? Now that we have reached the end of this journey, imagine for a moment that you are holding one of Saint Anselm's letters.
The paper is old, the ink almost faded, but when you read it,
Something magical happens. It seems as if the words come to life.
and that's when we realize the most important truth of this story. Anselmo didn't change the world because he had power.
He changed the world because he had the courage to speak from the heart.
The force that cannot be seen, but can be felt.
He had no armies. There were no castles.
He had no riches, but there was something that even kings and queens respected: wisdom.
Calm down, patience, and the courage to tell the truth, even
When no one wanted to hear it. And this shows that
sometimes the greatest power in the world lies in the words we choose to use, the letters that cross centuries like lights in the dark.
while many decisions made by kings have been lost to time, while castles were being destroyed, while kingdoms disappeared,
Anselm's letters have survived.
why? Because they carried something that never grows old. Messages that make us think, grow, and choose what is good. They remind us that peace is better.
Than war, communicating is better than fighting.
Understanding others is more valuable than judging them.
That is why even today scholars, leaders, and ordinary people read his texts as if they were maps to navigate life. Anselm's greatest teaching. Your words also matter. If Saint Anselm were alive today and could speak to you, he would probably say something like this. Don't underestimate the power of your words. With them you can get hurt.
But it can also heal.
You can separate them. But
It can also unite.
it can destroy. But it can also build entire worlds, because, at its core, Anselm's story isn't about letters to kings. It's about how each person, even a child, you can make a difference in the world if you choose to speak with love and wisdom. The final message for those who are watching.
So, when you finish this video and go on with your life, remember this: a letter changed a king's heart.
One word prevented a war, an idea that has endured for 900 years. And that means that every message you send, each conversation, each piece of advice, each sentence written, it can be the flame that lights someone's path. The story of Saint Anselm shows us that you don't need to be powerful to change the world. Just choose carefully what you say and always speak the truth.
And so ends the story of the saint who wrote letters to kings and queens.
But who, in fact, also wrote for us.
His words remain alive, and perhaps today, after hearing all this, you too can start
Writing your own story, word for word, choice by choice, day after day. If you enjoyed this video, share it with someone who also needs a reminder. The power of words. Until the next chapter, if these stories touched you, leave your comment.
Like, would subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell
so you don't miss the next videos.